Treat to be here.
Please describe why you're running and your qualifications for being a school board trustee.
I think I have some unique assets that will benefit kids in our district, as well as all participants in the community in the district. I'm a former retired CPA and CFO. I'm an expert on bonds by virtue of a job I held most recently before I retired. I'm the chair of the CBOC. I was on the Community Budget Advisory Committee. I think I can bring a financial oversight to the board that has never existed before. I think we have a lot of well-meaning board members, but we can't expect people who never studied finance to really be familiar with a lot of financial details, and I think provide oversight there. You know, beyond that, I'm really concerned about a number of other issues in the district. I think that we get very low grades on accountability and transparency. I see that all over the district. I see that not just in the district's finances. I see that in dealings with parents. I see that in dealing with cities. I see that in dealing with the faculty and the teachers in our district. I hear a lot of complaints, and it seems like every time I go talk to some parents, I hear a new complaint about how the district never followed up, was never open about their logic for doing anything. So I really want to bring a new kind of attitude to the board. I want our superintendent to understand that I'm clearly expecting openness and transparency in everything that we do. And of course, I'm really concerned about student outcomes. We have an enormous achievement gap in our district. And actually, overall, we have, in my opinion, very poor performance, but our achievement gap is something that has to be addressed. It's just wrong that our kids of color do so poorly.
Thank you.
So you state that one of your top priorities is to improve financial oversight. Why do you think that experience is so important on the board, and how do you think about the school board's role here versus the superintendent and district staff?
Okay, so when I look at some of the things we do financially right now, I don't feel that the community gets the information that they need. I don't think the staff is hearing, or the superintendent isn't paying attention to the community's need to have accurate and timely financial information. A clear expectation of me would be that we present our budget, for example, in a very open and understandable manner. I think we all know that for years the way we presented our budget is for our finance director to say, on line 27A, I changed line 3 by 15%, and I reduced item 7 on line 19 by 4%, and I did this and that. That's not good. That's not good enough. That's not even close to being good enough. The district, the parents in the community need to understand how the money is being spent. I think, if nothing else, that builds public confidence in the district. I'd also say that the way we go about planning our budget is all wrong right now. On one side, we're preparing the budget. And way over here, out of the range of the financial people, is where we're working on the LCAP. And in my mind, those numbers should be driving the budget process instead. We prepare the budget, we prepare the LCAP, and then we jam the LCAP numbers into the budget. That's all. Also, our accounting system is not set up to basically track how well we're doing on any budgetary numbers, particularly LCAP numbers. We don't know if the money's being spent properly the way it's supposed to be programmed to be budgeted. Does that cover your question?
You state group educational outcomes as another priority, and that you would like to see educational progress reported annually against a baseline. Do you think this is happening now? And if not, what specifically will you ask for as a board member, and what do you think will change?
So, in terms of educational outcomes, right now, we don't measure anything. We can't fix any problem if we don't know what's wrong. The way that we fix problems is by measuring our actual outcomes versus our expected outcomes. Beyond that, when we don't disaggregate data at all. We need to look at individual school sites and see how individual groups, be they Latino or English language learners or African American students, are doing. And our LCAP for each site should be reflecting that. You know, right now, when we run the LCAP, in many cases, what comes out of the LCAP, particularly in our districts where we don't have particularly involved parents or have school site committees, you know, the LCAP reflects what the district wants to happen at a school, or sorry, the district's preferred outcome or preferred result, simple, perhaps often the simplest result at a school. I would make it clear to the superintendent that I expect us to have open and honest communication with the parents in the school site, each school, and the outcome of the LCAP should reflect what they want. Also, I just feel that, you know, in many cases, the parents don't have the data. They're going into the LCAP, they don't know enough about the financial situation, what's changeable, what's not changeable, and we've certainly had issues with parents not being able to provide input because it's just their first language, or translators, those kind of things. But you know, mostly we just need to think more carefully about how we do our LCAP. We're going to get the results we want. We're going to improve our students' performance. We need to make sure our supplemental concentration funds are going where they should go, and not to, you know, $4.3 million in teacher salaries.
Thank you.
So you said that you would have voted to authorize the $1 million forensic audit because phase 1 risk assessment persuasively argued that a full forensic audit should be performed. Some people argued that the money could have been spent on other student priorities, and still others said it was nothing more than a witch hunt. What would you say to people who believe what's done is done and $1 million is too much?
So $1 million is a lot of money, but the district needs to spend a lot of time restoring the confidence of the community. The district wants to pass the partial tax. Maybe at some point in the future, we want a bond issue. The district needs to have credibility. And I would say that going through this process, it's painful, it's not fun, but this is a very important step in proving to the community that we care about how we've spent our money. If we have made mistakes in the past, we need to change those. In a sense, I see this as part of what I say about we don't measure anything. You know, it's like we've got to look at what we did, maybe measuring student outcomes, maybe measuring any number of things. We've got to measure and see if we spent our money properly in the bond program and learn from that so that we don't make the same mistakes in the future. Does that address your question?
Since you don't have direct educational experience, how do you intend to build a strong relationship with our educators? And what will you do to ensure that you learn about the day-to-day experience of educators, and how would you use this to inform your work overseeing a district of nearly 30,000 students?
Okay. As a school board member, it's not my job to micromanage the staff. It's my job to set tone and set tone in the district and to set expectations for the superintendent. That's the primary thing I'm supposed to be doing. If I had any special expertises such as finance, I would expect to apply those to problems that come up that are of a financial nature. But I certainly would say I'm not an educational expert. At the same time, I've got a lot of experience throughout the community and community organizations working to put together solutions that work for everyone. You know, this building right next to us, I put on the National Register, and that required negotiations and communication. Other buildings in this town, you know, the city and the developer fought against having sites put on the register. I seem to have an ability to go to people and say, look, let's find out where we agree, where we disagree, see if we can find a solution that works. And I would intend to take that same kind of problem solving and win-win approach approach here, particularly with the teachers. We have a toxic relationship with our teachers right now. And to be honest, I don't know why that is. It's awful. You know, when I interviewed with UTR, you know, I told them, as a trustee, I would expect if they're not getting data they need when they negotiate with the district, they need to get it. How can we have a fair negotiation with our frontline people if they don't trust us? They need to know everything they want to know when we're negotiating. So, you know, it's kind of a high-level approach, but we need to rebuild, just like we have to rebuild the trust with our community, we need to rebuild the trust with our educators so that we can move forward.
Some say there is too much divisiveness on the board now. She go to school board meetings often and probably know all the players. What kind of colleague could you be? And what kind of culture do you hope to help create on the board?
Okay, in terms of culture on the board, we need a environment where everyone feels the ability to communicate and not feel threatened by the opinions of other people. The purpose of the board is to have our diverse community well represented, and for those opinions to be discussed openly and honestly. To be honest, a lot of the issues the board faces are issues that I can't say I'm completely conversant with, but I think those of you who know me know that I tend to go to the community and ask their opinion. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? I just had a meeting yesterday morning with 2 women from Mira Vista who were very concerned about the Adams site. And we talked about the situation at Mira Vista, and we talked about the situation at Adams, and we talked for 2 hours. And so I followed up with one of them last night, and she sent me back this page-long email about this was the first time we've ever felt we were listened to. And, you know, all the times they've dealt with the district, with Beller, they've dealt with the people who are trying to stop Adams School. I mean, this was the first time they felt listened to. I mean, that's just my approach. You have to go to people and talk to them and listen to them. And I sincerely feel that when people are listened to, they feel like that's what I can expect. I don't think most people expect that you're going to agree with them every time, but it's really important for them to feel that they have input and somebody cares about their opinion. And my opinions get formed based on what I already know and what people tell me about an issue.
When you look at the current makeup of the board, there are already 3 white trustees from El Cerrito. And some community members might think that it's important to prioritize representation from other parts of the community and perhaps have a more diverse representation on our board. How do you reassure the community that you would look out for the interests of all children and that you're the right candidate?
I think it's certainly true that we have a board that doesn't appear to be very diverse. At the same time, anybody who spent much time working with me knows that I'm a friend to many other groups in town. I mean, I basically took the Japanese history of this town and resurrected it, leaving us, and I put it all together. This building, Chinese, I resurrected it. You know, in our community, you know, working with the Rise Center. I worked on Richmond Kids First. You know, at Yes, you know, Eric there is a big fan of mine. There's many different organizations, youth organizations, particularly in Richmond, where I have played a part, and I like playing a part. And what's odd to me is that I don't see other trustees and other candidates doing that same thing. I'm really focused on the kids here, and I want to do what's right for the kids. And one of the reasons I'm running, I didn't say it earlier, is because so many people from the Black and Latino communities asked me to run. They said, Tom, we're confident in you. We know that you're honest. We know that you want to hear everybody's input. We would love it if you ran. So I feel like I can represent those communities, particularly the kids. I want to represent the kids and do what's best for the kids, not the adults.
So what do you think it's going to take for our district to be one of the best in the state?
Well, I don't know if you've heard me say it, but one of my goals is that someday, probably won't be while I'm on the board, maybe I'll get 8 years on the board, but I want it to be like Albany. People will lie to say they live here so that they can go to our schools. Great principles is part of that. But it's going to be an enormous amount of work, but we can't even start that until we have a good relationship with our teachers and a good relationship with the public. Could you repeat your question again? I want to make sure I'm covering all of it.
What do you think it's going to take for our district to be one of the best in the state?
Okay, so it takes that great relationship. Another thing it takes is a willingness to listen. I already alluded to how people feel like the district don't listen, but the district right now is completely incapable of accepting any kind of genuine input. Any kind of listening session there is appears to be driven by the district's agenda. We're not going to get anywhere unless we listen to the public. You know, that includes the public sessions. You know, we had our Black Lives Matter stuff, which was horrible to the board. Our LCAP stuff so many times was bad. The district needs to learn to listen to the public and do what the public wants. Not go there with our plan. Here's our plan. Here's what we're going to do. We've got no way to measure it. And that measurement is a very big part of that because I'm open to almost any plan the district wants to do. To be honest, you know, I don't know if what Nia presents at a given meeting is a good idea or bad. I'd be a lot more excited about it if at the same time we present a new plan, we say, here's the metrics. Before we start the plan, here's the metrics. This is how we're going to measure. Maybe we'll get to the end at 6 months or a year and we'll find out that we didn't hit our metrics. Well, we either need to change the metrics, we need to adjust what we're doing, or we need to drop the plan. So we need to measure.
Great, so now we'll move on to the follow-up question portion of our time together. We actually went through our questions somewhat quickly, so we have more time for the follow-up questions. So, we have 20 minutes for this instead of 15. So, if you can raise your hand if you have a follow-up question. Sarah?
Yeah, so you talked about data and about deaggregating, I'm really tired, of taking out the data and looking at different groups and within our schools and how each one's doing and deciding what needs to be done. Like you mentioned, the achievement gap. What I'm curious is that data, it exists already, and you're right, it's not easy to find and the district doesn't do a good job of highlighting it to people, but have you taken a look at some of the high need groups within our district? For example, the African American community or the Latino community within the schools. And do you have like 1 or 2 ideas that you could share with us that you think could be something that the school board could work on to focus on those groups that are really in high need of help in our district?
Okay, so I don't know if it's answering your question with the answer that I just gave you, but measuring and looking at the data should involve measuring outcomes. So first of all, you know, in our LCAP, every community, the parents and the site council should be saying, here is what is happening at our school. Here are the actions we need to take to try and fix that. Here is our plan. Here's how much money we want to commit to doing that. So, to be honest, I don't have a magic bullet that's going to fix those problems, but we're not going to fix those problems unless the people who are closest to the ground get some input into doing that. And once again, it still goes to looking at the LCAP. It comes to writing a proper LCAP, proper use of our base and supplemental and concentration funds, making sure that we spend those funds the way they're supposed to be. I think we all know the district seems to be very weak in terms of being able to tell if we spent our funds the way we're supposed to. We need to be able to track and see if we spent that money, and then we need to measure. And then we need to evaluate, and then we need to see, is this working? Is that not working? I'll also say that, you know, for a lot of our school climate is very, very bad. You know, we've got sexual harassment, we've got bullying, we've got intimidation, we've got parents feeling threatened, retaliation. We need to change that school climate. Also, a lot of our people, a lot of our staff is not really properly culturally attuned to understand, hey, some of these communities are different. We need to work, think the way they do. And we need to use restorative techniques rather than keeping kids out of school. I mean, I don't know if it's worse to have a kid who spent half the year in suspension, to have him not included in the test results, and therefore we're not truly reflecting where we should be, or to have him included in the test results, or her included in the test results, and have those test results driven down because they only spent half the year in school.
Great, thanks, Tom. Next question.
I know that you were saying about being able to talk to those parents for like 2 hours and really listen to them, and then they, email that that's the first time they felt listened to. And I think that we're not seeing that happening with other school board members where they're talking to parents and taking that time and going to the schools. And I know you said about going to individual school sites, because I don't think that policies that are good policies are being enforced really, or are reflected in the individual schools. And how would you make that happen? Would you be willing, are you going to, is that part of your plan to go to these school sites and be intentional and authentic with those listening and having the conversations?
Well, let me say there's only so many 2-hour discussions I can have in the next 4 years. But absolutely, I mean, I'm hoping that I will at least get to see my family once a week. But we have to get out there and talk to them. And I'm just kind of stunned when I hear that so many school board members don't do this, or they walk around with the principal and see what's going on. Or all the teachers, I don't want to be popping into a school. Hi, I'm here. At the same time, I don't want everybody to be primed for my visit. So it's kind of a difficult thing to do, but one way I found it very, I didn't think of this consciously, but a very effective way to do this has just been going to events and talking to people, I'll have a little board things as Tom Panas, school board member, and trying to engage people and finding out what they think. In many schools that mean I need to get my Spanish needs to get better, but at the same time, there's people who could come along with me who could help me with that. As I said before, I don't consider myself the authority on these issues. I want to try and be a facilitator. Also, I just wonder time and time again, if we need someone who's really a parent ombudsperson. So, right now, so many things go to the district, and they seem to fall into a black hole. I would love it. If in the same way that Marcus Walton, in my mind, does a really good job following up on information requests, it's his job to do that. He keeps track of everyone. If we had the same thing for parents, a person they can go to if they feel like they're not being served, by their principal. Does that address your question?
Yeah.
You've talked a lot about parent engagement and teacher engagement, so I'm just wondering, what are some of the ways and some of the steps that you would take to work more with young people to empower them, to help them navigate through the system?
I think a really important part of that, the district unfortunately tends to have we're in charge and we're the only ones who understand this attitude. I really would like the district to engage more with some of our community organizations, whether that's Lieutenants, whether that's the Right Center, whether that's Healthy Richmond or Building Blocks, or these other groups. We need to do that. I felt like Parent University has been a good way to do that. But once again, how many times a day do you hear Coca-Cola or United Airlines ad? We need to be constantly telling people we're here to listen. And I certainly would want everybody in the district to know that I'm here to listen, not listen to every one of them. But we need to have a culture in our district where we value the community input. And I think, going back to some of our community organizations, some of them are better for strengthening families, learning at home, things like that. Some of them are just better for just helping out the kids on a daily basis, a place for kids to go after school. Some are a place, they're just resource centers, or we've got the Family Justice Center. We need to be partnering with all these people. I mean, I can't do all that myself, but I'm very big on the district working with some very valuable community organizations we have to have better contact with our parents and our students. Did that answer your question?
Given that there's this unique opportunity of an incoming superintendent, and you shared that one of your primary roles, you believe, is to kind of set the expectations of this with the superintendent. What other ways do you think you can take advantage of this moment in time of a new superintendent? What do you think the challenges are? What do you think the opportunities are?
Well, I know that almost every person in the district probably wants to meet with the new superintendent. You know, I've talked to several people who are already saying, oh, I'm going to have a meeting with the new superintendent right away. He's got a really difficult learning curve. I mean, not only does he not understand the district, he can't particularly well understand our history here. He doesn't understand Richmond politics. That's going to be a hard job. Somehow I think the superintendent needs, I'm not saying it's me, but he needs someone to help him understand the history we have in our district. And I think the superintendent needs a really good relationship with every board member. There have been board members in the past who I was more fond of or less fond of. The superintendent needs to be reaching out, and we, the board members, need to be reaching out to each other to make sure that we understand our individual and collective histories. He's got some great experience, and I'm thrilled to see he's part of leaders. I'm hoping that means that he will be more open to working with the outside. The district has been. I was thrilled when I read he spoke Spanish very well. That's so important for our community. I mean, if nothing else, just to have a superintendent who can go out and be polite to the community. I'm sure he can do a lot more than I can, which is just be polite. But we need, I mean, every board member, me and all the others need to communicate with the superintendent. You need to understand our history if we're making any progress here. Whether that explains why there's opposite to the parcel tax, or the bond, or suspicion about the district. He's not going to be successful if he doesn't understand where we've been. Did I answer your question?
Sarah, you talked about needing to fix the toxic relationship, what you call it, with the teachers union and with teachers in general, between teachers in the district. And you've also talked about, listening to people and listening to what teachers have to say. I'm wondering what that would look like in actuality. Would it be like setting up meetings with teachers, going to union, like creating some sort of meeting with unions, going to school sites? How do you envision fixing that relationship?
The superintendent needs to be a big part of that. I'm kind of stunned when I talk to certain people in our district and, they know what they're planning to offer the teachers 4 years from now. I had a very interesting conversation, I think we're probably Pam Mirabella, with on the county school board. Her husband came and talked to me on 4th of July. And he talked to me about how Albany, he teaches in Albany, he's a union rep in Albany, and he talked about how the district there used to be very much like us. It's a very bad relationship with the teacher. And a key part of the change was bringing in someone on the district side, and I don't know exactly what happened on the union side, who was very focused on win-win negotiations, someone who found out about what are your issues, what are your needs, before they started trying to negotiate a contract and lay down their final unchangeable offer. So I see that as being open and honest with the teacher. And as I said, we need data. We need to give them the data. I mean, it's public information, and yet we hold back. I'm happy to talk with union people anytime. But, right now, I don't think there's a lot of trust between the union and at least some members of the cabinet. That needs to change. I mean, you hear the teachers talking, you know, the principals don't have any input into picking who's at their site. You hear that people are unhappy with this work group or that work group. And there's all these complaints that seem to be bottled up inside the union, and they're never acknowledged by the district. I mean, as I said before, if the district would just listen to them, that's important. I'm happy to listen. I can't see many things more valuable than having a great relationship with our teachers, and I want to change the way we work with our teachers. I don't want to have this bad relationship that we have right now. Did that answer your question?
If you were elected, what do you think your biggest learning curve would be?
I think the hardest thing for me would be understanding the relationship between all of our different bargaining units. I mean, I talk to people from different bargaining units, and they seem to have such diverse priorities and views. It's a really interesting thing. Labor relations is hardly one of my most prominent skills. At the same time, when you have good labor relationships, it comes back to good communication. But, I mean, for example, on the CBOC, we've been trying for 10 months to get the solutions team to give us a nominee to be able to hold that position on the CBOC. And it's like, they don't talk to each other, they don't think it's important, but it's like, in some sense, while we don't seem to get along with our unions very well, it's like the unions don't get along very well with each other. And that's got to change too. I mean, I don't know if I can make that change, but actually, to be honest, I don't know if I can make anything change, but to me, it's really worth trying. You can't do much worse than we're doing right now. And I want to get in there and try to foster open communication and try and deal with these relationships we have with all the people we pay to take care of our kids.
We have time for 2 more questions.
So you previously referenced enrichment politics, and there may be different issues with navigating the politics and different perspectives and opinions across various issues. How might you work to navigate and strengthen those relationships with people who might make assumptions about who you are and what you stand for? And to that point, if you could be a little bit specific around what drives you, what brought you and motivated you to assume this role now. And
Ask me that question one more time.
definitely. So it's kind of a 2-part. So in part, I mean, you reference politics and you reference the complexities of navigating different stakeholders in the district. How would you strengthen relationships with people that make assumptions on your values and who you are, where you're aligned politically, why you do things that you do? And to that end, I feel like you can answer that question by hopefully expressing a little bit more around the values around what motivated you to run.
So, first of all, I'll just say I mentioned that I was interviewed by UTR. I heard back that they were kind of amazed in a good way by some of my responses. So that goes back to talking to people, being willing to talk to people, being willing to go places that seem uncomfortable and talk. But I have kind of a long history of being involved in the community, the historical side. I mean, the library. What could be more important than the library than kids? You know, friends of the library. You know, we basically raise money to support kids programs and other kids. We're trying to make sure we have a literate, a well-educated, and knowledgeable population. The food pantry. Once again, I'm there. That helps families and that helps kids. You know, as I've matured, I've really learned that it's important to do whatever you can to make your community better. And it was almost by accident that I started going to school board meetings, but I kept, a white guy from El Cerrito. And to go to a school board meeting is an interesting experience for someone who's always experienced a pretty placid brand of politics. And I was starting to realize that, my Lord, the whole district doesn't look like what El Cerrito looks like. And I don't mean that in a racial sense, it's sort of every other sense rather than a racial sense. And I kept hearing all these people being denied what seemed to me like some simple things and stories about people being ignored. People kept asking me to run, and I kept saying no, 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 no. And one day it dawned on me that maybe these people actually see something in me and trust me. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought it made sense. I haven't run for anything since I was in high school. I created the student body presidency. I just thought, here's an opportunity for me to make a real contribution to the community. And I'll just say, some of the people who I expected were going to be really unhappy with me, mostly because I'm not deadly opposed to charter schools. I've been stunned by their response when I told them I was going to run. One person in particular, one of the people I talked to, I had my big, look, don't worry about it if you don't want to endorse me. And when I asked him what he thought about me running, he said, that's the best news I've heard in a long time. I just feel like I seem to have something that gives people confidence. And I'm open, honest, and transparent, and I want to help our community and help the kids in our district. And that's why I'm running.
And with that, thank you, Tom. Time is up together.
Sorry.
No, this is perfect. Why don't I see you out and everybody else